Derby County have a ton of highly rated prospects coming out of their top level academy, but are any of them going to make the first team next season? And if not, what should the plan be? Now, obviously, over the course of the last 12 months, Derby County have obviously had a range of youth players take to the field, whether that be on the subs bench or like Lennon Wilden making your debut or Dejon Brown becoming a regular within the first team squad. But what should we do with them heading into next season? Now, obviously, the main talking points are going to be around players like Dejon Brown and Jake Rooney, who have been around the first team for a little over a season now and deserve a little bit more of a conversation. But when we talk about someone like Dejon Brown, who has held a lot of interest from other clubs over the course of the last 2 years and is a player who I believe can certainly go on to play at championship level, but I do believe he needs to be playing consistent football, and I don't necessarily believe that Dejon Brown is going to get that at Derby County next season, although we don't know what Eustace's plan is with the young players heading into next season and what he actually wants to do with them. I'm just going to give my sort of verdict, and when it comes to Dejon Brown, I think realistically he needs to be starting 25-30 games, and I don't think he's going to get that at Derby. So I think what we really need to start looking for is that sort of League One, maybe League Two loan, where he's going to go to a club where he's going to play 20, 30 starts a season and is going to be able to show what he can do in the Football League. And I'm not saying that Dejon Brown is going to turn out to be the best player to ever play in the Championship, but I think it then gives us the opportunity to assess how he's playing, how he's developing, and yes, it'll be away from Derby, but we'll be able to have those conversations with the current manager that he's working with and things like that, and we'll be able to keep in touch with Dejon Brown about how he's getting on and how he's finding it. And I think that's something that opens up a whole new can of worms for Derby, where they can see a player develop, but they don't have to take it all on themselves. And I think with Derby County, that's something we've been guilty of in the past, is some players have, in my opinion, needed loan spells before they get to the first team. You look at Max Bird broke in at 16, should have had a year on loan before he came back and sort of played for the first team, but obviously didn't end up doing that. I think Sibley would have probably benefited from a loan. You look at the likes of Buchanan, even Jaden Bogle, Festi Abiselli. Like, some of these players could have done with a loan spell before they broke into the first team to just give them a true representation of men's football. And I felt like for Derby, a lot of those players that didn't get the opportunity obviously went on to do great things. Some of them, obviously Sibley on loan at Rotherham the past few months. Obviously Max Bird, Jason Knight got themselves into the playoffs. Lee Buchanan, I believe, is at Birmingham but broke his leg this season. So, like, there's some good players that have come out of Derby County's academy and that haven't had the loan spells. But for me, I think for a player like Dejon Brown, needs to be playing football where he can put the ball in the back of the net, because when you're only playing 10, 15 minutes for Derby, coming off the bench in a championship game, if that really, to be fair, it's not great. And you don't really get the opportunities you get. I think he scored twice this season. And one against Hull, I think one was against, was it Leyton Orient in the Cup, which was a nice goal, by the way. But I just think he needs extra game time, needs extra minutes where he can really prove what he can do as a forward, whether that be holding up the ball, breaking in behind, whether it be beating a man and scoring, whether it be those one-touch finishes outside the box, or winning a cutback, winning headers from set pieces and showing how effective he can be. And I think that's one of the problems that Derby County sort of face when it comes to this summer, is for a player like Dejon Brown, is that he's only really played for Gateshead on a consistent basis, and obviously Derby's under 21s and stuff like that, but I think he needs more senior professional experience, and I think that will come at a top end League One club, maybe even League Two. No, sort of a mid League One club, top end League Two. It wouldn't honestly surprise me if we saw Dejon Brown end up at MK Dons or Rotherham next season, based on obviously the knowledge that Matt Hamshaw and Paul Warren will have on him, and it'll be interesting to see what they do plan to do with that. Now, for Derby, I think Dejon Brown will head out on loan. You've also then got the conversation about Jake Rooney. In my opinion, showed in League One that he was more than good enough to be a top end League One player, and just hasn't had the chance this season because of injuries and things like that. He's been fit for 7 months now and just hasn't really been given a shot. Obviously didn't get his first day in the matchday squad until January. But for me, I think he deserved an opportunity at least to play 15 minutes to show what he's capable of. I understand John Eustace will see more of him, and I do really believe that it was more a case of Eustace putting trust in experience rather than youth. to get us out of the mess we were in, and I think he's done a very good job with that. Obviously, you'll probably then argue, but he's played Harrison Armstrong in midfield, he's played Liam Thompson, but ultimately didn't have a choice. Osborne got injured, Hellmine picked up an injury, Hendrick obviously wasn't fit when he came in, so you've got those sort of conversations going on, and obviously Harness ain't a midfielder. So, like, for me, a player like Jake Rooney, I think will go on loan next season. I think you even look at the likes of Cruz Allen, Niall McAndrew, maybe even Luke Banks. I think they're all going to be looking at potential loan spells for the next 12 months, and I think that's exactly what they need, is those sort of... I'm not saying that Allen or McAndrew or Banksy or Cox, Dan Cox will be getting those opportunities to play sort of EFL football next season. But I think if we can get them sort of loans where they're going to be playing men's football, 20, 30 games, like I mentioned with Dejon Brown, I think that's the right move to do. And I think with Jake Rooney, it's a similar sort of situation. Again, as I mentioned with Dejon Brown, I wouldn't be surprised to see Rooney end up at an MK Dons or a Rotherham, because Paul Warne put trust in Rooney early in the League One campaign when we had no right back, with obviously Jason Knight had moved on. I think Corey Smith was injured, Wilson was injured, Ward was injured. We didn't have Niambi. So we were sort of in a position where he played in that right back, right centre back position and did an excellent job, in my opinion. And I think that opens up that door for that conversation between Paul Warne and John Eustace, and obviously Rooney as well. If Rooney wants to go and play that type of football again, you've obviously then got the discussion around Matt Hamshaw and Andy Warrington. I believe they're both at Rotherham. I'm not sure what Warrington's role is. I'm not sure if he will be GK coach or if he'll be the assistant manager, but we'll have to obviously wait and see what they choose to do with that one. But there's a lot of discussions to go on around these young players, and there's a lot of young players that Derby County have. You look at Jack Thompson, Harry Evans. I'm not entirely sure what Harry Evans' contract situation is at the end of this season. I'm not sure if he'll still be a Derby County player or if his contract's up. But you've got those sort of... I think there's another goalkeeper as well, Harley Price, I think his name is. And obviously you've got a ton of good goalkeepers coming through. Charlie Hardy playing for England. You've obviously got Asher Taylor, not a goalkeeper, but a defender who's made a couple of appearances for England and been on their camps recently. So there's a lot of sort of conversations going on there, just a little bit, in my opinion, away from sort of senior men's football. I think Asher and Charlie are both just coming on to 16, maybe 15, 16. But I think they're both going to have like unbelievable careers. Especially playing international football at youth level. Like, it opens up so many doors and it puts you in front of so many faces. I think they'll make professionals out of footballers, if I'm completely honest. So it is going to be interesting to see what they choose to do with these young players, and obviously the conversation around obviously the likes of Dejon Brown and Jake Rooney is going to be the most common one that we'll hear about heading into next season, and I think that has to be a big discussion and something which, in my opinion, in sort of the back to pre-season sort of interview we'll get, I think that should be the conversation that should be had, is what is the plan with the youngsters? Are they going to be bled into the squad, or are they going to be sitting on the sidelines or going out on loan? And realistically, I want to know your thoughts, and I want to know what you want to do with Dejon Brown, what you want to do with Alen and Wilden, what you want to do with the Jake Rooney, because I'm not saying they're going to be starters for Derby County at any point next season, but at some point they may be needed, and I don't think they have the experience to be needed right now, and that's something which we're going to have to wait and see on. Now, obviously, you can let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County content heading your way. It's obviously been a tremendous back end of the season, finishing in the top 6 for the form over the course of the last 11 games. John Eustace has a massive role to play in what comes next for Derby County and what happens with the youngsters. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you have not done so already, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and I'll catch you in my next video.